Welcome back to the GoEngineer YouTube channel. I'm Mark Sheets. Today's video is a webinar recorded on June 2nd, 2021. Before we get started, make sure to hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Good morning, everyone, and welcome. My name is Mark Sheets, and with me today is also Quentin Rock. He's going to be doing the heavy lifting of monitoring your questions and answering those, and we'll also pause throughout the presentation and kind of have a quick look over those questions. Today's presentation, we're going to talk about PDM Standard. It's the PDM tool that most of you probably already have, even if you're not using it. It's included, as you know, with SOLIDWORKS Professional and Premium licenses. So we're going to go through discussing just in general terms what PDM does and what it solves. And we're going to cover PDM Standard, kind of drill down into its functions and how it can help you, what it looks like. I'll do some live demonstrations of using the tool. And then we'll end up with how we can help you get started with it. All right, let's cover first, in general, what PDM tools are available from SOLIDWORKS. So SOLIDWORKS PDM Standard, our topic of today, and it's included with every seat of SOLIDWORKS Pro and Premium. It runs on Microsoft SQL Express, so it is running on a database tool, but that's the free tool. So it's still easy to get started with PDM Standard. It's also PDM Professional. That's licensed separately. It's not bundled into any of your SOLIDWORKS bundles of Pro or Premium. It does require Microsoft SQL Standard. This will bring to the table some additional capabilities on top of PDM Standard. And most customers will move toward PDM Professional when they need multi-site, they need to integrate PDM to ERP systems and the like. Has advanced workflow capabilities. It's integrated into other CAD tools, not just SOLIDWORKS. It's got things like serial number capabilities, tasks, an API, and more export options than PDM Standard. And there's PDM Manage. So PDM Manage is actually, we sort of consider it an add-on to PDM Professional. So it does require PDM Professional. And this is the tool you would want to use if item management is important to you. So that's your master records, bill of materials, does process management, task assignments, product portfolio management, build kits, anything that really has to do with item management, and it has really powerful data analytics tools built into it as well. And we should also mention the 3D Experience platform. If you haven't implemented any of these PDM tools yet, and you want to go to the cloud, you might want to consider talking to us about the 3D Experience platform and managing your data all on the cloud. It's a software as a service. Again, it's not bundled into anything in any current SOLIDWORKS package. All right, but of course our focus today is PDM Standard. A lot of customers, their strategy is to start with Standard. It's actually pretty easy when you do need the capabilities of PDM Professional to move into Professional. You can almost think of it with a little bit of an update process, and now you have the professional capabilities and probably some additional configuration, but they're really based on the same core set of software. So I want to mention client license types. So when I mention a CAD editor, that's your integration into SOLIDWORKS. So SOLIDWORKS Professional and Premium, that's what you're getting is a CAD editor license for each of those seats. If there's others in your organization who want to use PDM, but they're not a CAD user, you can purchase separately contributor licenses, and they can put their documents into the vault as well. And then we also have viewer licenses. So this is a lower cost point for those who only need to search and view documents. Well, hopefully most of you are here because you do have SOLIDWORKS Professional or Premium level licenses, and you have PDM and you want to know what it can do for you. If you have any of these issues, you probably ought to seriously consider turning on your PDM licenses and begin using them with some of our services to get you going. But these are the things that it solves. If you find that you have multiple copies of your files, because there's nothing to stop users from copying these files, onto their own systems, and then you're never really sure where the latest revision is. if you've ever broken references because you've renamed files or moved them to other folders, or if you ever run into the issue where you're working off a shared network drive and someone else has overwritten your changes after you're done with the part. If you've ever spent time trying to figure out where your part is used before you start changing it, or assemblies are beginning to get very slow to open, most people realize that when assemblies grow and you work off a network drive, they get pretty slow. This is also the cause of people tend to copy stuff to their own system so they can work faster and then copy the files back onto the server, which creates issues. Then you have multiple copies of your files. If you've ever tried to manage revision history without a PDM tool, it's a ton of work. It's very tedious. If you find yourself opening the wrong file because of those multiple copies, if you run into process bottlenecks, you probably want to move into PDM. Let me introduce you to PDM, and I call this the pillars of PDM because these 4 things are what just about every PDM system will do for you. Certainly SOLIDWORKS PDM. First of all, you're working in a vaulted environment. If you want access to the files, it's under PDM's control. That's where you're going to get the files. Your files are secure in this vault. To work on something, I check it out. That puts my name on the document. And while I have it checked out, no one else can change it. They get it read-only. When your files are in the vault, if I want to rename or move a file to another folder, you can do that. You're not going to break links. It's one of the huge advantages is, okay, now I want to rename this to some part number. You really don't have to worry about following proper SOLIDWORKS procedures. You can just rename it like you would in any Windows Explorer folder system. Where used is just the click of a button away. Running behind it is a SQL database, and that's what's keeping track of the references. And then managing your metadata, that's just information attached to your documents, the information you would use for bill of materials, linking to title blocks. Basically, think of your custom properties in SOLIDWORKS, and any of your current custom properties can be brought right into your PDM system. So you can search on those, use them for bombs and title block information. Most PDM systems have some mechanism for doing revision control. We also have what are called versions. So anytime I chuck a change into the vault, it rolls the version of the document. That's great, because if I want to get back to a better design that I had this morning or yesterday, it's in the vault. I can open that up and then continue my design from that point. Revisions are an approved version. So as we go through the workflow, that's in PDM, we'll get to that next, and a document is approved, we're approving a version of the document, and that PDM will put a revision stamp on that document, and we keep full history of these documents. Also, history refers to just each individual file. We can look in there and PDM will tell us every action that's happened to that document in PDM, who's checked it out, when they checked it in, time and date stamp. Next is a workflow engine. This is usually used to track your change process or new document process, and it brings a lot of automation into your environment. And so we'll be digging pretty deep into the workflow engine. But one of the key elements of having a good workflow engine is that when something is in a certain state, let's say it's work in process, if we have a lot of people participating in our PDM environment, we may block those people from actually seeing work in process documents. They can only see release documents. So it's also a really good tool because of this for distribution of documents. Most customers realize great increases in performance when they bring in PDM, because in the background, it's going to actually cache your documents onto your laptop or your workstation. And so you're working off your local system. What's really nice is that this is PDM managed. You don't have to worry about making copies and trying to manage multiple copies and making those mistakes. All right, let's get into the specific functions of PDM, starting with document management and the user interface. It's completely integrated into Windows Explorer, so this is a UI that you don't really have to learn. There's just new functions in Windows Explorer that you need to learn, but most people already know, let's say 80% of how to use it because it's integration into Windows Explorer. You can put any document into the vault. Anything that's a file can be vaulted. You will manage, specific information per each document type. Also built into the UI is eDrawings Professional. And as far as a multi-CAD and multi-document viewer, that specifically is PDM Professional. But all these other things PDM Standard does have. Specifically CAD file management, I've mentioned this already, but it keeps track of where your documents are used and all the referencing. I have a where used and contains button, so that will show me any references to a document or from a document. And again, renaming those references isn't going to break links. Multi-user collaboration, I'll be showing this momentarily as well, how it prevents us from stepping on each other's work, and when others are making changes, how to get those changes live on my system. Multi-CAD support is really a PDM Professional function where it's integrated into other CAD tools. All right, so let's take a look at PDM Standard. We're going to first just cover the user interface here. This is just Windows Explorer. I'm on my C drive. I've got a bunch of folders, and two of these folders are actually PDM vaults, and they have a PDM icon next to them. I like to put these up in my quick access toolbar and just pin them up there. It's an easy way to get to them. Since they're, it's integrated into Windows, I can do this sort of thing. Once I go in here, it works just like Windows. Here I've got folders. I keep my templates in the vault, my PDF drawings. I've got an engineering folder that I'm going to jump into here where I've got some engineering projects, and just browse into the paint sprayer project where I've got SOLIDWORKS files. Here you can see it's Windows Explorer, but it has a wealth of information next to the files. So I can see who's working on files, what state they're in. Since it's Explorer, I can sort on these. If I just want to see quickly, get a sort of a snapshot of the status of the files, I can see who's working on the files, just sorting on that column. So it's pretty handy to be able to do this kind of thing. I'm going to sort back on the file name. Now the lower half of the screen, you'll notice there's some specific PDM functions. We click on this drawing, every file has a data card. This is where we can view and edit information about the document, and each document type might have its own specific data card layout. So for a drawing, I've got this kind of information. I've got a tab here for comments, and I've got a tab here that's going to capture my approvers as it goes through the workflow. If I choose a component, this is a component data card. It's a little bit different. This is information I want specifically attached to the component. Is it purchased? I can put in, the supplier information here. If it's built, yeah, you can turn that off. Over here, there's a preview function, and this is where we find the integration of eDrawings Professional. Here are my eDrawings menus, and since I clicked on an assembly, this is just a 3D view. So any PDM client license has this viewer built into it. I don't have to have a license of SOLIDWORKS to view the 3D documents, and of course the 2D document as well. So this is now using the viewer for this drawing. So some might just be viewing drawings. If you want to go beyond just the small window down here, I can click on View File at the top, and it's going to instantly launch it into eDrawings Professional, just a separate window of it. But each license of PDM, each client does have eDrawings Pro built into it. So you got your markup tools and stamps, and you have access to clicking on, document information, the layers and all that, a little animation built into eDrawings. So you've got full functioning eDrawings Professional as its viewer. All right. Other tabs here, we've got a Bill of Materials tab. So you saw in that drawing there was a BOM. I can actually look at the CAD BOM right here within PDM. I don't even have to open the drawing. So it's all here, just exactly as it appears on the drawing. But within PDM, I can format my own BOM layout. So here I've got an engineering BOM with stuff that folks in engineering might want to see. I've got a manufacturing BOM configured in this vault where I can, this might be something that I'm allowing access to others in the organization who only need to see this much. We can also show weldment cutlass and weldment BOMs as well, just like we can with SOLIDWORKS. I can save my BOM out as a CSV file. I can search the BOM, and I can also compare different versions of the BOMs. So a lot of BOM functionality built into here. The Contains tab here is kind of like the BOM, but this really breaks it down as you would see it in SOLIDWORKS into the levels of your design. This can also be exported and saved out as a text or a CSV file. So this is a big assembly, and I'm showing just everything contained in this assembly. I can also collapse the tree structures if I want. Where used, I want to find out, for example, where revision A of this drawing is used, and notice there's a PDF file. So when you have other files in the vault, you can create these associations between your files. So I've got my SOLIDWORKS drawing and its released PDF file. That PDF file actually sits in my PDF folder. I'm going to browse to that. And so here's the PDF sitting in its own folder. And if I now click on, the Contains tab, it's going to show me just the opposite view. So we can see that the PDF has a relationship to this SOLIDWORKS drawing. All right, let's browse back to that. I'm going to show one more thing here where I've got this part file and where used. So just an addition right there where that's something we frequently want to do. So this part file has all these references to these other files. All right, now let's look at the user interface that's within SOLIDWORKS. So we'll open this assembly in SOLIDWORKS. And PDM lives over in this area here. And this, by and large, shows me everything I had in the Explorer interface. I can open up the tree structure here. And when I click on a document, I see the preview of the document down below, plus additional information. At the top, I've got my checked out, check-in functions, change state. I can view and edit the data card with that button there. Of course, those are probably all linked to your custom properties. I can open the file. I can look at the history of a file. And this is what I was talking about, where we keep track of who's done what with the file. Notice the red stripes across these documents. So this is PDM telling me that I have the drawing open, but someone has made changes to these components. So if we focus on the paint jug down here and this knob, you'll notice they're kind of gray and a black color there. So in PDM, if I want to get the latest updates from changes others have made, I just click on this button here. It says Get Latest Versions, and live dynamically on my screen, we'll see those updates. We just give it a moment to grab the latest versions from the vault, and my drawing is updated. It's one of the cool things I wanted to show about working in a collaborative environment. If I have it checked out, everyone else gets it read-only. If others have it checked out and they make changes, I can very easily get their updates with that function. Let's just review CAD Management here. So totally integrated into Windows Explorer. That's true for anytime you are in Explorer or you're in an open or a save as dialog, and we'll look at that a little more closely in a minute. Full history, so you have versions, revisions, you have the history tab showing you all actions. So, you've got great reliable traceability. You have visibility to all references in both directions. Where is something used or what does it contain? And that also includes non-CAD documents. And because there's really a database system controlling this, you probably never have to deal with breaking a link again. Okay, we're going to move into the workflow engine. So the workflow engine, what's nice about PDM Standard and Professional is that it's really designed to fit into your process environment or your desired process environment, as it might be. It's very customizable. This is going to bring in automation for approval, your change process, release of a document, and do a great job of enforcing policies. Now, the two bottom bullets that you see here, those are really PDM Professional. So with PDM Standard, you have one workflow in the entire vault. So your CAD documents and all your other documents are going to go into the same workflow. With PDM Professional, you really have the ability to set up unlimited workflows for different document types and different approval processes for different groups in your company. It also provides for advanced workflow transitions. For example, in PDM Professional, I can say, well, you can't release, I've got a rule in that says you can't release the assembly until all reference documents have been released. I want to talk about workflows just to introduce you to these if you're not familiar with what this can do for you. When you're managing files in a file system, some companies have made it a standard to constantly move documents into different folders to provide security. So if it's released, it goes into a released folder where it's read-only. With PDM, you're never going to be faced with the requirement to move files to a different folder. They just transition from one state to another. Here's a workflow example with 3 states in it. Very simple process and very common process, actually. It's either work in process, waiting for sign-off, or it's released. But let's look what PDM can do for us. Let's say it's work in process. We might have restricted viewing of that document. We don't want people to either have access or print something that's work in process, except maybe those in engineering. We're still going to maintain version history. So I still get that nice PDM function of where I check in. I keep version history, and I can go back to what I did this morning. This prevents me from playing around with different design ideas by making copies of the file and getting really clever with file names. This is a transition. Literally, the menu would be within PDM Submit for Approval. PDM has a notification system built into it. We might want PDM to send a notification to the approvers automatically. We might have to change document access. PDM will take care of that just simply by transitioning it or submitting it for approval. Email notifications are something that's only available in PDM Pro. Standard does have a notification system. It's its own built-in inbox system, whereas Professional can just be linked to your standard email. Viewer licenses can participate in the workflow. If there's those in your company that don't have SOLIDWORKS and the viewer licenses are coming at a lower price point, to allow them access to the vault, they can approve or reject a document. When we talk about unlimited approvers and parallel process support and workflow conditions, that's something we really only find in PDM Professional. Okay, so we'll just keep this focused on standard here. Say someone rejects it, well, might send a notification to the user, change document access. And if a document is approved, we'll have PDM automatically set the revision on that approved version. Your drawing title block might update. And PDM Standard can create the PDF file. As far as creating other information and automatically exporting, DXF files, bill of materials, XML data, that's a PDM Professional function. Same with printing and email notifications. When a document gets released, PDM, the vault will probably provide more visibility to the released documents. This is the one we do want people to see. Connecting to ERP systems and setting up that kind of automation, again, is something you would find only in PDM Professional. And then when things are changed, it might just go right back into work in process again and go right through that workflow. So that's a simple example just to introduce you to workflows. I wanted to show you this because this is actually a workflow, a pretty typical workflow that we see in PDM Standard. The boxes there represent states, and we have 6 states in this workflow. And we were even able to include a loop in here for a prototype release, which would have PDM put a different revision designator on the prototype document versus the approved document. And to give you an example on how a document would go through this workflow, if I first put a document in the vault, it would go into the PDM controlled state. And if I needed to make a document, I would just right-click on the document, say, oh, prototype. This would move the document into the prototype state where it would be in somewhat lockdown. We probably wouldn't allow users to edit that. It would also assign it, a prototype revision. A lot of companies use the standard of an X and a number. Once we build the prototype, we want to edit it again. The document might go back into PDM control if it's not ready for release approval yet. And we want to send it for release approval. The notification would send a notification to the approvers. The document then sits in pending approval. We'd probably make it read-only. Again, the vault takes care of this. Once a document is approved, we provide more visibility, and here's where we'd have the vault automatically create a PDF file, park it wherever you need it to park it, and create that relationship to the original drawing. In this example, I've got a document in my vault that I'm ready to submit for approval. It's just a new nozzle design. I'm going to go to the File Open function in SOLIDWORKS. And here, because PDM is integrated into here, you'll notice I have all the same functions even in File Open. I even have my search tool sitting in here. I don't know where my document is. I only know that there's the word splatter in the description. And by running a search, I can find it. I can preview it. I can look at the data card. And then I'll just open it, since this is really just a result of the file. This is just doing a file open within SOLIDWORKS, but it's really handy to have all those PDM tools in file open, file save. Here I'm going to check in the document, so click on the button here so you can see what that looks like, and now it's checked in. A couple things I want to point out here is that the document is now read-only now that I have it checked in, because I can't edit it once it's checked in. I'm also going to now push this to submit for approval. I'm going to put in some comments here. The comment and the notification comment will be part of the notification. I can also set up PDM so my notifications are dynamic, meaning I can actually choose the person from the approver group who I want to receive the notification. Now, of course, there's the read-only. You can see the status has changed. Everyone can see that it's pending approval. This is information you can search on. If I go to my Explorer interface, I see the exact same information here. Now that I'm in Explorer, maybe I'm one of the approvers. I might want to come in here and then continue it through the workflow. Instead of rejecting it, I'm going to just say that this has passed approval. So I click on Passed Approval. You'll notice that the revision is in this vault, we initiate documents at a dash revision. There's no letter revision yet, but it's assigned that automatically. When I click on Where Used, here's the PDF file that the vault automatically created. And it's put it for me in my PDF folder. I'm going to browse to that. We'll look at the PDF data card. So we've transferred information from the drawing into the PDF data card. So this all becomes searchable information as well. If I click on Contains again, there's the opposite view of that, where we can see how what file the PDF is related to. So the vault did all that for me. One of the things I really wanted to show here through this workflow process live is, from a user standpoint, it's really simple stuff. I'm just pushing stuff through the workflow. I'm checking it out to work on it, checking it in when I'm done. And because this workflow can be configured to meet your needs, it's really going to fit into your process. How do you do it now? We can configure this so it works the way you work. So here we're going to see how we've seen how PDM automates, that approval process. Even the creation of the PDF documents helps reduce your bottlenecks as well. All right, searching. So this is another big advantage to having PDM, is it's on a SQL database architecture. Once you get a lot of components in your vault, particularly when you start to put library components in your vault, instead of always creating a new vault of some kind, it makes it real easy to find something you've already done. You've got your search tool built right into the open interface, for example. The search tool is actually configurable. You can set up a customized search user interface and deploy those to different groups. Let's take a look at searching. I want to find something in my vault. I don't know where it is. And I'm going to start out by using the complete search tool. This has all kinds of options. So just on this tab here, I can search by name, description. I can say, search through subfolders, display files. But you can also create custom cards. So here I created a search card where I'm searching on the vendor name, and I can now quickly see all the documents I have with Acme as the supplier. I can also create my own searches. So I'm going to set up a search that says, well, find me all documents that have the word nozzle in the description and were drawn by Mark. Quickly narrowing down my search results to something very specific. I can do a search on all the files that Adam Hughes has checked out. So I can see instantly what he's currently working on. If I wanted to do a search on everything that's pending release or pending approval, we can do that. So I have clear visibility of what's waiting to be approved. So that's the complete search tool. It's got all those tabs and buttons and options, but I can also custom configure searches. Here I've created one called Super Simple Search. all it does is just prompt me for a file name, run the search, and there's all the documents that have 88 in the file name. Just wanted to show that as a quick example of a configurable search and group deployable. So I might have folks on the shop floor, they just type in a file name and it might only produce the PDF file results instead of everything in the vault. So those are things that are pretty easy to configure in PDM. I think one of the big benefits of having good search tools is, reducing the number of redundant components you might have in your vault. Find something you already created. It's going to reduce wasted time in finding your documents and make it easy for everyone in the organization to find a document rather than just plunging through, wasting the time of, plowing through files and folders. Integration. Well, with PDM Standard, integrating to other systems like ERP or MRP systems, other enterprise-wide systems in your organization, you really need PDM Professional to do that with many of the options that come with it. But with PDM Standard, the best you can do is get one of your BOMs and save it as a CSV file, so at least it's an electronic interface to those systems, and come up with some way on your ERP system to import an Excel or a CSV file. Multi-site support, you're really looking at PDM Professional to do that. PDM Professional provides the ability to replicate the files to remote servers so that when somebody on a local site opens a big assembly, it's opening it from the local server, not over the wide area network. And then there's also a browser-based client in PDM Professional as well. Quentin, do we have anything else we want to answer before I get into how to get going with
Yeah,
PDM?
there's a couple good ones.
Cool.
So is PDM necessary for a single user?
I think we'll both tackle this. My answer is PDM, if I were a single user and a contractor, I would absolutely be using PDM, even though I probably wouldn't need much of a workflow, probably 2 states. I'm working on it and I've sent it to my client. But I would use it for my own document control because of version history, revision history. I have all the historical documents in there for finding files and for managing the metadata and making it very easy. I've got a nice UI for handling the custom property information and create some really nice data cards and things like that. I think those are the main reasons I would prefer to be using PDM Standard even if I were a single user. What do you think, Quentin?
I pretty much, you spot on. There is a little bit of implementation, but once PDM is up and running, there's not much to it. And as a single user, getting the file management, just being able to rename and move and not break references, having everything in one spot like that, I think that plus the version history, even if you're not going to revision and have an approval process or anything, or just have a couple states, very simple, that version history, being able to go back and and not have to sort of zip everything up when I want to create a snapshot of a product. I think that's very useful there. And then other things like copy tree and move tree and other things, there's all these little benefits, even if you're not needing a lot of PDM functionality. There's a question about accessing PDM outside of the office when you're working remotely. I don't know if you want to handle that one.
Yeah, with PDM Standard, you need to be connected to the Vault, and that's typically done through a VPN. In certain situations, there is another way you can work. When you are connected to your Vault, either directly on your company's network or through VPN, you could, check out or cache everything you need to work on. And then you can work in an offline mode and get your work done, and then turn it back onto online mode when you have that network connection established again, and then check your documents back into the Vault. Those are the only 2 ways I can think of working remotely. Quentin, do you have any other ideas?
No, I think that's pretty much it. Is VPN's pretty much the common way because you do have to connect to the server. And then there's the offline mode, but I call offline, it's a limited offline mode. You're not going to be able to check in and do interactions with the Vault, but anything you have cache can still be used. Yeah,
you still have access to those files that are cached on your system. You open them, you save them. You're just using SOLIDWORKS at that point, or whatever you're using, any document that you're working on. Yeah, to check in, to find another document, you have to be connected to the server. Okay. Anything else?
Yeah. How complex can the workflow become on a PDM standard to accommodate a multi-step ECR, ECO process?
You're quite limited in dealing with trying to
Right.
handle your ECO process within the Vault. You can certainly manage your PDM documents to reflect your ECO process. You know, you have a process in place and you just want to identify those documents as being a certain point in that process and protect those documents. But to bring an ECO process into your Vault usually means you need a workflow specifically for your ECO, your ECR. We can do that with PDM Professional because it's not limited to one workflow. PDM Standard is limited to one workflow and 10 states in that workflow. So you can do a lot with the PDM Standard workflow, but you really can't bring in multiple processes into PDM Standard.
Okay.
Okay?
And then the last one, it's a short one, but before you get back to it, is will PDM recognize duplicate names?
It's actually up to you. My recommendation is you don't allow duplicate file names for CAD documents as a minimum. It is administered. You can turn it on so you allow duplicate names, but then you get yourself sometimes into the same trouble you've always had with
With Windows.
duplicate names. But yeah, most of my vaults I actually set up so I don't allow duplicate names for almost all file extensions.
Okay.
So a lot of people ask me about, well, is it something I can install and set up myself? Install, yes, likely. Set it up, let's talk about that. So the pros, I guess, for DIY vault setup is your potential cost savings. I will say this, and as I put it right up here, if you have prior PDM administration experience, you can probably do this and do okay with it. The challenge is basically this. Self-learning. There's a lot of videos out there. There's a lot of ways to attempt to set this thing up and learn how to set it up. But that doesn't really have long-term value because unless you're going to come work for us, you're probably not going to be setting up a lot of vaults. Once the vault is set up, you're just using it. There's little ongoing administration required in a vault. So self-learning, great. You might have saved some money in learning and setting it up, but there's no long-term value in all that learning. Also, there's a high risk of failure. We know the rules. We kind of know what you should stay away from in setting up your vault. So we kind of know best practices. So you might set up a vault, start putting documents in there and realize, wow, we really made a big error in this workflow. And now we're kind of locked into it. And you may not realize the full benefits of PDM without somebody's expert knowledge. And that's where I like to say, hey, that's where we come in. Most companies will go with what we call our PDM Standard Jumpstart. It really is low cost, very little time involved to get you going and running with turnkey Vault, ready to use. Now, this doesn't include migrating your existing files in the Vault. This is just getting your Vault set up. We have a process that's been proven, and let me just walk you through the steps of this process. We're first going to send you out a survey. We want to capture your current information, your server information, the capacity of the server, the processors, to make sure you have things in place that are going to make for a successful implementation. We're also just going to capture everything else that we're going to need to know to expedite the whole implementation process. So the survey is where we start. We're going to follow that with a kickoff call. This is where we're going to review the survey. If there's any red flags, we're going to make sure that those get resolved. When do we resolve those? When are we going to be ready to do our installation and everything else down the line? We'll get that calendared and scheduled. We'll do the installation. So our Jumpstart includes installing SQL Express, the Network License Manager. Every PDM license actually floats. And then your Vault. Then we're going to go through a business process workshop. This is where we're going to review what your workflow needs to look like, what rules we need in that workflow, what are we going to automate in that workflow, permissions and everything else. Talk about your revision schemes. What variables do you need on your data card? How do you want your data card structured? We're going to go over users and groups and permissions and project structure. Then we're going to build it for you. We do this. We're going to test it, provide you some administrative instruction, not full-on admin training. Just show you the ropes on some basics in administration, how to add a new user, remove a user, maybe adjust some of the permissions. Then we're ready to go live, provide backup instructions and your client installation instructions, and sign off. We're done. You've got a Vault that's ready to go. Like I said, it's low cost, low risk, very efficient. These preliminary steps here don't take very long. This business process workshop, we're probably looking at about a couple hours. Then we'll go ahead and configure your Vault, build it out. That's typically around a 2-day process for us. We're good at it. Additional services, we do often recommend that somebody attend the administration class. That way you really know the underpinnings of the Vault. If you wanted to change anything in the future, you're pretty well equipped after that admin class to do that on your own without having to call us to do it. If you need to migrate your files in the Vault, if your files are fairly well structured, they're pretty clean, your own self-migration could be as simple as copy, paste in the Vault, check them in. A couple other things you might want to do, like set revisions. Otherwise, we can help you with that. Typically, we're providing migration services if you're still in Workgroup PDM and you're now moving to PDM Standard or Professional, or another PDM tool. You can migrate that into PDM as well. That's where we get involved. If your company is moving away from on-prem servers and the like, and you're going to cloud services, PDM can be hosted on AWS or Azure. We also provide hosting services. I'm going to stick around. Quentin will stick around for some additional questions, but I want to thank you all for attending, taking the time to learn a little bit about PDM Standard, the PDM tool you might already have, and how we can help you get going with it. Quentin, is there anything else you want to address live before we sign off?
There's quite a few questions that were pretty good that I've been trying to type them, but
sometimes it's good to share them with everyone if they're good questions.
Exactly, yeah. So there was just some questions like what's in Standard versus Pro. So one of them was the auto number. Can PDM Standard auto number CAD documents when files are released? So short on that is no. There's no.
That's correct.
Serial number generation in PDM Standard. PDM Pro can do that. So in Standard, you still rename them, but I like to add to that, renaming files in PDM is extremely simple. Just go into Windows and rename it. You don't break references. So even though you don't get the serial number generation, you do get some extra functionality that's still very helpful there. Is it possible to require a multi-user approval process, like 2 separate people have to approve a document? Not with PDM Standard. So that's with PDM Pro, there is the ability to do a parallel plus multiple transitions to and from the same state. So there's a lot of, depending on how you want to set it up, there's a lot of options there.
Let me chime in a little bit. If you have a 2-person approval process, it's you could make that a serial approval process. One person approves it or rejects it, and if they approve it, it goes to the next person. That would be a serial process. You could do that in PDM Standard as long as you don't build out that workflow to exceed the 10-state limitation. So each approval person would take up a state each. So that's 2 states down. So it can be done if you're okay with a serial approval process.
Yeah, and exactly, and you're not out of states.
And you're not out of states, yeah.
Let's see, here's some new ones that I haven't got to, so we'll just go through them here live. We have a problem with 32-bit software causing problems. We get an error message saying cannot open PDM Standard. That one's a little tough. There's probably more information needed. I'd probably recommend reaching out to our support team at support@GoEngineer.com so that we can investigate a little further. But PDM is not a 32-bit application, or at least hasn't been for several versions.
That's right.
So, yeah. Let's see. Can we go into more information about cloud hosting or PDM on the cloud?
Please talk to us. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we have our hosting services, but you could also get an Azure or AWS or whatever, hosted cloud Windows server. The only requirement is PDM is still sort of an on-premise application to where it needs a Windows operating system to install.
Correct.
And the same with SQL, at least the SQL version we use. So, but that could be a cloud server, that could be a server in one of your other buildings, it could be, wherever. It doesn't have to be on site. GoEngineer, on the other hand, we do have cloud servers where we can host your PDM. So we're not necessarily giving you a cloud server, we're giving you a hosted PDM environment. So if you want to go that route, I wasn't sure if you meant hosting on your own or with us, but let's see. Is there a webinar for the administration of PDM, or is it a class that I have to attend? Mark, you want to grab that one, or you want me?
Yeah, for full admin training, we do recommend going to a class. It's always instructor-led. And it's a 3-day class because go into all the details about administration. If you search enough, you'll find various topics covered out there, but your classroom training is really the best for admin training.
Yep. And that actually leads into a couple of the questions. There's a few of them that have popped up about costs. How much are the license types, the different license types? How much is the training? How much is implementation, jumpstart? All that.
Those are just great questions, and we don't have time to get into all of those in this webinar. We're a little bit over time already, but it sounds like you're ready to talk to us about moving forward. So you were probably invited to this from one of our account managers. Please reach out to them, and we'll continue these conversations.
Yep. And if you ever don't know who to reach out to, support@goengineer.com is just an easy one to remember. And that's, there's our emails as well, but that's.
Well, you can contact either one of us as well, and we'll get you to the right person if it's not
exactly.
us.
Well, whoever you contact at GoEngineer will get you to the right person if it's not them. So
yeah.
There's plenty of other questions, but I know we're kind of close on time, so I'll leave it up to you to decide.
I think we'll kind of wrap this up, and I want to thank you all for attending and appreciate you spending the time with us. If you're ready to look into our Jumpstart information, getting into that, some additional licensing and the like, we're ready to work with you. We're at your service. Thanks again, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this webinar, please subscribe and leave us a comment below if you have a topic you'd like us to cover in a future video. Visit our website, GoEngineer.com, for access to professional training, upcoming events, and more. Cheers!